Welcome to the C.L.I.M.B. This is a show dedicated to helping singers, songwriters, and indie artists like you create leverage in the music business. Leverage is a strategic advantage. It's intentional. It's the power to make stuff happen because you have a track record, because you have results, because you have a reputation, not because we have to believe in you. You've already proven that you can do what it is that you're trying to do. That's what it's going to take to have success in the new music industry is leverage. And that's why we called this show The C.L.I.M.B, C.L.I.M.B, creating leverage in the music business. And the word man that came up with that is my good friend and co-host, Mr. Brent Baxter. Brent's an award-winning hit songwriter with cuts by Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, Lady Antebellum, Joe Nichols, and more. And Brent helps songwriters like you turn pro by revealing how you can write like a pro, do business like a pro, and then he, on the regular, connects you with opportunities to get in front of the pros so you can make relationships and get your foot in the door. You can find Brent super easy at songwritingpro.com. Once again, that's songwritingpro.com.
And I would like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns Daredevil Production. They help you find your sound and they help you grow your audience. And Daredevil has created over 25 national TV opportunities for their indie artists by making them discoverable. They've also created multiple tour opportunities, and through the power of digital marketing, data, they've attracted a number of investors for their artists. And investors like the numbers because the numbers don't lie because numbers can't talk. And you can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That's production, singular, with no S. And there is no S because there is no other Johnny D. What's up, brother?
How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing all right. I'm ready for this coffee to kick in a little bit more, but other than that, good.
Well, we got a lot of stuff to cover, so let's get right to it. What we're going to jump into today is your beliefs. When was the last
briefs? You're going to jump into my briefs? No, I'm sorry.
No, beliefs. There's an L in there. Beliefs. Yeah.
Beliefs. Okay, thank you.
Your beliefs. I'm a little whacked out of my mind right now on this cold medication that I have. So I could have said briefs. I don't know. But if I misspeak during this podcast,
you didn't. I was just messing with you.
Forgive me. But when was the last time you examined your beliefs? I'm just going to drop this bomb and then we'll take care of a little business. But most people get all their beliefs, the majority of their beliefs, from the time they're ages 1 through 7, and hardly anybody goes back to re-examine some of those beliefs to find out if they're still applicable, if they're still serving them, right? They might have been a really good thing to believe when you were 5, and now it could be totally different that you're an adult. That's what we're going to hit. But before we get to that, let's take care of a little business. The C.L.I.M.B podcast is proud to partner with disc makers who've been supporting indie musicians before indie music was even a thing. And when you're ready to make CDs, DVDs, vinyl records, or distribute your music and videos and other cool content with those customized USBs, go to discmakers.com. DISCmakers.com is the only place you need to go.
And while you're there, click on the Guides and Resources tab and download some of their excellent free guides. They've just revised and expanded their home studio handbook, which has a ton of great advice and information for newbies and for studio veterans. You can find them online, again, at www.discmakers.com, or give them a call at 800-468-9353. That's 800-468-9353.
Yes, and there's a little jingle there. Let's get right to join the C.L.I.M.B community. If you haven't done it, search for it on Facebook. Ask to be let in. We let everybody in. Don't worry. Just be good boys and girls.
Because we don't keep everybody in.
Subscribe to the podcast. If you haven't done it, wherever you consume podcasts, that way they all come in and they're in order and you can consume them at will. Take 30 seconds, leave a 5-star rating and review. It would mean the world to us and shows other people that we're legit. And then finally, share it. If there's an episode that's really speaking to you, post it on your social media. Tell a friend about it. If it's helping you, it can help them. And Brent and I just really want to thank everybody for taking the time that they take twice a week to tune into this podcast and listen to it, man. It means the world. I mean, we're doing this for you guys, and the numbers keep growing, and we're just real grateful and real happy that we're making a difference. So thank you so much for spending the time.
Yes, thank you. I mean, we have just recently, a couple of weeks ago, surpassed 200,000 downloads, which I don't guess we talked about on the air yet, but over 200,000 downloads. And I do not have that many relatives. So that is you guys finding value in what we're doing, and we appreciate it. That's pretty cool to see those numbers racking up because you guys are listening. So
and the second 100,000 took about like 30% of the first 100,000, which was exciting. So
it took. It's funny, it's just speeding up. So thank y'all.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so let's dig into this. We got a lot to cover today. Just spoiler alert, we're going to dig down a little bit. We're going to push on some bruises. We're going to scratch off a scab or two, maybe. We're going to go deep on this. So be advised. Be advised. Okay. Let's talk about beliefs, because straight up, I am up to my eyeballs right now in so many different programs, coaching programs, right? We talked before, I did the Rick Mulready thing, which is completely already paid for itself and set us on a direction that's super profitable in our company. We're excited about that.
And that's for Facebook advertising. So you're
right.
Upgrading your skills in that area and investing in your skills, and it's already paid off. Yeah.
And it wasn't a few $100, right? It was thousands. And then I just did a Tony Robbins thing, and I got like a VIP thing to this Millionaire Mind thing. And then I did this other thing with another coach that's more about online businesses. And you know what? There's a common theme with every single one of these. It's beliefs. The first thing everybody's got to deal with before you get into doing this or that, or that, whatever it is you want to do, that you got to get out of your own way. And beliefs very often are the things that are holding us back. And as I mentioned before, you get most of your beliefs from the ages of 1 to 7 years old. And most people fail as adults to go back and re-examine them to see if they still apply, if they're still valuable, if they're still relevant. And some of the beliefs, it could be benign stuff. I'll give you a real good example. So there's a story of the Easter ham. There's a mom and her little daughter are cooking Easter dinner together, and mom gets the ham out and she cuts the end of the ham off and throws it in the garbage and puts the ham in the oven. And the daughter asks the mom, "Why'd you do that?" And she's like, "You know what? I don't know. My mom always did that. So I did it." Okay. And by the way, while we're getting into this story, this is the thing, like your beliefs aren't even yours. They're somebody else's that was given to you by your parents, and they're not theirs. They were given to them by their parents, and so on and so on and so on. So a lot of this stuff gets carried down, and without re-examination, it can be catastrophic for our lives as artists, as songwriters, as human beings in relationships and stuff. So the mom and the daughter call grandma and like, "Hey, grandma, we're cooking Easter dinner. Mom cut the end off of the ham. She said, you always used to do that. Why'd you do that?" She said, "I don't know. My mom always did it." Luckily, great grandma was still around, right? So let's call her. So they get on a conference call, and the little girl asks great grandma, "Hey, great grandma, I'm curious, like we're cooking Easter dinner and mom cut the end off the ham. And she said she did it because her mom did it. And then grandma said she did it because you did it. Why'd you do it?" And she goes, "Oh, it's easy because the pan I had was too short. So I had to do it to make it fit." Right? So it was a pragmatic, practical thing to do. And they just always did it because that's how they learned it. Right? And that was their belief that this is what you got to do. And then all of a sudden now it's like, oh, it was just because the pan was too short. The particular pan she had, she was just making it work.
When I was a kid, for a long time, I thought pork and beans was false advertising because you got the can of pork and beans, Showboat or whoever, and there was never any pork in it. And it was just bean. And one day I asked Mama, "Why they call it pork and beans? There's no pork in it." And she just started laughing. I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Well, there's that one piece of bacon fat in there." Basically all it is. And I open the can and I get it because I'm making dinner. So I always eat it before you see it. And so that one piece of so-called pork, which is basically just fat, and that would be my mom's little treat for herself. Pop that in her mouth, when she's making dinner. So I never saw the pork. And so it's still like a running joke in our family. It's like I would, if I hadn't asked her about it to this day, I'd be like, "There's no pork and beans," which barely is. But I would know about that. Well,
that's so funny.
Cuba pig.
So this is the power of beliefs, right? And so here's the deal. Beliefs come first, then reality. If you change your beliefs, you change your reality. I talked about before the book by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich, which he started writing in 1908. And I think it came out maybe in 1937. Don't quote me on that. But it's been around for a long, 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 long time. And the first chapter in that book, Thoughts Are Things. And he talks about, two guys sitting on the corner, on the side of the whatever river the Brooklyn Bridge goes across. I think it's the Hudson, but don't quote me on that if you're from New York and I'm screwing this up geographically. I meant to look that up before the podcast, but I didn't.
So it's going over the Mississippi.
Yeah. And they're just saying, you know what? Like we should build a bridge from there to there and make getting back and forth to Brooklyn a lot easier. And it's at that time, it was the longest bridge ever built. And the first bridge that was so long that they had to mathematically account for the curvature of the earth to make it work. But they had to believe that they could do it first, and then they did it, right? If you feel like making a living as a songwriter is just an insider's game and you're out crowd, that's true. You're out crowd right now, right? So how are you going to get to be in crowd? How are you going to start to develop some of those relationships that can make you in crowd? You've got to believe that you can, but don't use that as an excuse to fail. Right. Or to not do it.
Was it Thomas Edison or Henry Ford? One of those guys said, whether you believe or whether you can or whether you believe you can't, you're right.
Yeah, it was Ford. And he said that a man who believes he can and a man who believes he can't, and both men are right. Again, belief, right? That's the key word in there. Belief. So I'm going to really I'm going to rattle your chain right now.
Okay.
What do they call Missouri?
The show me state.
Show me state. I see this all the time with artists that I'm talking about when we're doing consultations. I see it with songwriters because we do lots of song demos for songwriters that are amateurs trying to get in the game and trying to do it. They're from the show me state, essentially. They're saying, you know what? Until I see proof that I have value or that proof of validation of my work as an artist, I'm not going to invest any more time, any more money, any more love, any more emotion, right? They sort of think about it like a lemonade stand. If you've heard us use that term before on the podcast, that's what I mean. You go out and you buy a bunch of lemons, you mix it up with some sugar and some water, and you sell it, and you right then and there, you make the money back on the effort you spent getting the lemons and the sugar and the water, plus a profit. But that's not the way it works in the music industry. You've got to have a brand. There's got to be a bunch of people that are kind of onto you that are really digging what you have to say. So even if you've got that one killer song, it's not going to be enough for you. And so if you're only relying on the validation that you've already gotten, and that's what you're going to need to go forward, you're doomed. Statistically, there might be, if you do make it and get the kind of success that you want, it's going to be like a 1 in a million kind of a thing. You're going to be the exception to the rule. We live simultaneously in 4 different worlds, 4 different states, all at the same time. And I'll tell you what, I want you guys to do this exercise either in your head or if you're not driving or something, do it on a piece of paper. But just draw a line down and a line across. So there's like 4 little boxes.
4 little quadrants, yeah.
4 little quadrants, okay? On the upper left quadrant, write the word mental. That's the first state that we live in. Below mental in the lower left quadrant, write spiritual. On the upper right-hand quadrant, write emotional. And on the lower right-hand quadrant, write physical. So mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical. Brent, of those 4 states, of those 4 different worlds, which one can you see?
I can see the physical.
That's it, right? And a physical is a footprint of those other 3 states of what you're doing mentally, spiritually, and emotionally manifests itself in the form of the physical. So if all you're doing is saying, I need to see to believe, then you see how you've already stopped the whole process of manifestation. You're not going to write that song. You're not going to get that cooler co-write. You're not going to get that better gig and get on tour and make a living making music if you're going to be an artist because you're cutting yourself off because you want the results first before you put in the mental energy to manifest the results. And by the way, 75% of results is unseen mental, emotional, and spiritual work. And then there's the physical work.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think those things definitely affect the physical work. We were talking about this before we hit record, and so I pull out this book that's actually on the bookshelf right behind me that I've been kind of going back through. It's one I read a few years ago, and it's by John Maxwell. It's called Beyond Talent. So become someone who gets extraordinary results. And I've just been kind of going back through it and pulling out, re-looking at stuff I highlighted and that sort of thing, and just kind of went through the chapter about beliefs. And it's interesting, he talks about belief determines expectations. If I believe that I'm going to be shut out because I'm a female writer or because I'm just not one of the good old boys or whatever, that is going to determine your expectation, right? I believe that women are shut out. So therefore, my expectation is that people are going to shut me out. And your expectations determine your actions. So therefore, maybe I want to approach the big boys or whatever. And actions determine results. So belief determines expectations. Expectations determine actions. And actions determine results.
Yes.
So it all goes back to belief. Like I have a buddy if you believe you won't make it, then your expectation is, well, they're going to pass on my song. I'm not going to get a meeting. I'm going to fail. And your expectation determines your actions, right? And so I'm not going to try as hard. In other words, I'm going to get just enough evidence. I'm going to wait for someone to tell me no, which is what I expected. And then I'm going to move on instead of keep knocking on that door. I'll knock once. Somebody's going to say, not here. You're not welcome here. And then I'm going to go on because
And now you're
That's
up to
what I expected to happen. Right. I was right. I proved myself right. And then that action of walking away of quitting determines your result, which is you don't make it. So you think you can't, and you're right.
Yeah.
Versus the person that believes they can and goes, this is going to take a lot of knocking on doors. This is going to take a lot of failure along the way, but I'm going to make it.
Yeah. I'm going to figure it out. So my expectation is there's going to be ups and downs. Okay. Yeah. This is part of it. And then you go through it, and then you're like, all right, well, it's not the end of the world. Somebody told me no, it's part of it. All right. Next person, knock on the next door. No, that's part of it. And eventually you push through where the other person quit because you haven't validated your belief yet and your expectation, which is I'm going to get a lot of no's, but then I'm going to get a yes. You keep going, you get that yes. And your expectation determines your actions, which is I'm going to keep going. And then your actions determine your results, which is eventually somebody says yes. Exactly.
So the person that thinks they can, they're right too.
Well, let's go a little deeper down that road for a second. So I want to ask everybody listening to my voice right now on this podcast. Do you feel like if you strive for success as an artist or a songwriter and you don't succeed, that you'll feel foolish, that you'll feel like a failure? I'm going to ask the question one more time. Do you feel like if you really strive for success as an artist or as a songwriter and you don't succeed, that you'll look like a failure, that you'll be a failure?
I had a buddy tell me one time in a moment of candor that he had moved to Nashville to do the artist thing and the writing, really the artist thing. Just wasn't busting his tail, taking advantage of, had gears he wasn't using. Mm-hmm. And one time he told me, he goes, I think part of it is if I never really try, I never really fail.
Yeah. Well, and so
it's a protection racket, right?
It's a protection racket. And there's a bunch of people that feel that way, but here's the part I want to drive home. And that plays right into the hand that I wanted to deal here is failure is what other people think of you. Mm-hmm. If you could fail and you would be the only one that knew it and nobody else on the earth would ever know, you wouldn't care.
Well, there's failing and then there's being a failure, right? Failing is like an action or result. A failure is who you are, right? Those are two different things. You can fail without being a failure.
You can't be successful without failing.
Exactly.
You have to do that first. And so, that's my point. What are we really afraid of? Is it really failure? Or are we afraid of other people being disappointed in us and what they're going to say and how they're going to feel about us? Mm. Because again, back to beliefs. If you want to be a songwriter or an artist, that's okay, but you better have a backup plan. Because hardly anybody does that. Or if maybe you just have a nasty parent or something who's just like, you're no good, and you keep telling that. And so we start to believe that. So we choose not to take a risk and try to succeed at something because it could end in a failure, even though maybe that failure is like 1 out of 2,000 ways you figured out not to make a light bulb. Yeah. Right. And then you're like, okay, now I figured it out. Now I know what I want to do. But you've got to be able to autonomously believe in yourself and move through that and not have that outside influence make a difference. I was thinking about this morning, and this is a correlation. It really is. Let's talk about addiction for a second. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of addiction, right? Alcohol, drugs, porn, codependency, sex addiction. Are you thinking about the disappointment? When you do that, are you thinking about what other people think about you?
Like when you participate in the addiction?
Yeah. When you participate in the addiction, you're just doing it because whatever reason you feel like you need it. Mm-hmm. But it almost has to be like that kind of a thing, only this is a positive, constructive kind of addiction.
Okay, I was wondering where you're going with this. I'm like, I thought usually the addiction thing is what we don't want to do.
Honestly, I think that's a common trait that I see with artists is that they're just so obsessed with moving forward so that they can make a living as an artist. The ones that are successful, the songwriters, like they just are always thinking about it. The antennas are always up. They're just so immersed in the process of it. It's like an addiction, but this way, it's a good addiction.
And a good one. Okay.
Yeah. If you're obsessed with your family, that's a good thing. You're taking good care of them. You're spending time with them. You're doing the things you need to be doing. But my point is where it's similar is that maybe we feel ashamed about the addiction that we have, but yet you still do it on the bad one.
I gotcha.
Why not the good one? Yeah. Why not just say like they don't understand, but I believe in myself. So I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to do it. Like we can't let them get in our way.
Yeah.
That's the part that I wanted to hit on. So next is what's your belief about money and success? Because when we go down this road right here, which we're about to go down, you can exchange the idea that you have in your head and in your heart right now of money with artistic success, whether it's artistic success of you as an artist making a living making music, or artistic success as you as a songwriter and you're making a living writing songs for other artists. Okay? I believe those are going to be interchangeable, because what it is like success.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah.
And so many people that have your belief system, again, from the time that you're 1 to 7 years old, was given to you by whoever raised you. And that was given to them by whoever raised them, which was given to them by whoever raised them.
Right.
And if you don't re-examine that and go deep down and say, you know what, I need to think about this. Like, this is what I believe. Does it still serve me? Mm-hmm. This is just what I do out of a belief, right? It's almost like a habit. So it was like autopilot. Mm-hmm. But I mean, so you and I were talking about some of this before we press record, Brent, but money doesn't grow on trees.
Yeah.
Money is the root of all evil. If you have a lot of money or a lot of success, you're greedy.
Yeah.
And that means
you must have stepped on somebody and done something shady.
Yeah.
You got it by extracting value.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah. And the one that hit me the hardest when I was going through these exercises here was I realized that how blessed I am. I had a father who's an entrepreneur. He owned a corporation, a small corporation, where the most employees ever had like 45 people or something, maybe. 35, 45 people. There was times when there was like 8 or 12. I remember those times too. But he was the entrepreneur. So he was always thinking positive. Here's how you make the money work for you. Don't work for your money. Like, I got a lot of really good stuff about money.
I mean, Rich Dad, Poor Dad kind of thing.
Yeah.
Have you ever read that Robert Kiyosaki book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Yeah. And I'm in a room with a bunch of people that had poor dads.
Yeah.
And the speaker came from a family that had poor dad. And they're talking about the beliefs that were handed down to them and how that got in their way. Biggest misconception, I think, that, and this goes in the artistic community and the music world for sure, is you have a bad association with money and time. Mm-hmm. You think that you get paid for your time, which is easy to go there if all you ever had.
Time is money, baby. Time is money.
And if you've just been an employee your whole life, right, working that job, then how would you think about any other way? That's physically what's manifesting itself in your life. Mm-hmm. And so in order for you to make more money, you need what?
More time.
More time, right? I don't have time to make more money, the money that I need to do that song demo so I can take a shot at being a songwriter, the money that I need to record and market my music. I'm going to need 2 or 3 jobs to do that. And I've got a family and I've got this and I've got that. And it's like, you don't get paid for time.
Right.
You get paid for value. Mm-hmm. The people who bring more value get paid more money. And again, I find myself in a very lucky position of really understanding this because most of my life, I've been a commissioned sales guy. Mm-hmm.
So you get paid off value.
Yeah. I mean, I get, 1 month I might have $5,000 and the next month I might make 20. Mm-hmm. Because I had a good month. I provided more value to the company. I got paid more money. That manifested itself in reality for me. And I see the more value I had. So I think about it differently, right?
You weren't thinking about, okay, well, I just got to clock in, put in these hours.
Yeah.
It didn't matter how many hours you worked. It mattered how much value you
brought. Yeah.
There's a story from Jordan Harbinger. He's the host of the Jordan Harbinger Show. It's a podcast and used to be on the Art of Charm and stuff. But I've heard him tell the story before where he started off he went to law school. So he was at this law firm. He's, just starting out. And there's one of the partners that was like never there. And lawyers are, bill by the hour. They keep their time sheets and all this stuff, bill by the hour, time and money, right? This guy was never in, but he was a partner. He's just rolling it. And finally, he tracked the guy down and was like, why are you never in the office, but you're making all this? He's like, I'm the guy that brings in the deals. Yeah. Like he's the rainmaker. Mm-hmm. He's the guy that brings in the client. So he's always on the golf course.
Yep.
He's like, exactly. And that's when he started going, oh, it's not about the time I put in. It's about the value. That guy wasn't putting in all the time, or if he was, it was on the golf course instead of at the desk, but he brought tremendous value. So he was a partner. He did a different way. He looked at the value, not the time. Someone, I think it was in the Songwriting Pro community, might have been in the C.L.I.M.B community, posted a thing about songwriters deserve to be paid for their hard work and creativity. Contact your legislator kind of thing. Kind of an anti-Spotify and those people that are legit screwing us over, right? Because the laws haven't caught up yet. So they're taking our stuff and paying us what they feel like it. It's not a fair market. So I get where he's going with it, and I appreciate that, and I agree, and I have contacted people and support that stuff. But just the way it was said, I was like, I posted it, I was like, just with a wink, it's like, nah, I don't expect to be paid for my hard work and creativity. I expect to get paid for my songs that generate income.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah,
and that's a different mindset, right? And now, this guy, bless his heart, I agree with him, right? We deserve to get compensated for our results. Like if I get a song cut and it's out there generating money for Spotify, I deserve to be able to have a seat at the table.
You created it.
I created it, but my creativity and hard work, doesn't matter. Because that's not what generates the value. The value is in the song and what it, once it's out in the marketplace and people are enjoying it, and that's bringing value and that kind of stuff. So that was a little cue on my mindset going, okay, this is the kind of a little bit of a mindset check. Now, I don't expect to get paid for my hard work. I expect to be paid for my results. My songs that are generating income and entertaining fans and selling records and selling concert tickets. Yeah, it's generating something. So I expect to be paid on the output, not the input.
Yeah.
And that will change your mindset on how you look at it as a writer. Like, I'm working hard versus, okay, well, I need to do the right things that are going to generate the real end result, which is economic activity. That's what I expect to get paid on, not just because I'm working hard. Who gives a rip how hard you work? It's the results.
Yeah. That's right.
You might keep that one guy on the team because he's all heart. He's Rudy. Because no one's going to outwork him. So he sets a good example. The coach can always point to, look at that guy. He's half your size. He's twice as slow, but he's out here busting his butt every day. So there's value in that. You bring the value of it.
Well, okay,
an example. But
yes, go hold on. Go down just right there. That was the point that I want to bring up. We've talked before on the podcast about there's some people in this town, there's hit songwriters in this town who are usually part of a three-way write, and the other two writers come out and they're like, I don't think he ever writes or she ever writes anything. But their energy is just so infectious and so good. Like they're providing like value the way Rudy is on
and the vibe and the
So they found out a different way to bring value in, and their name is on that song. And while they can sit there and tell you, I don't know what they write, in the same breath they'll be like, but I don't want to write without him or without her.
Yeah. I've heard those stories. I've not been in the room with those people.
I know one. I haven't been in a writing room with them. I'm not trying to do the professional writing thing, but I know one person exactly like that. And
I'm curious. We'll talk later, but yeah, it's like, and that's a value. If you're the one that keeps the forward momentum and you're cheering people on to help them feel good about themselves so they can tap into that creative genius, or you're the matchmaker who brings these two people into the room together, magic happens. That's real value.
Yeah.
It doesn't go in, if you're counting lines and trying to split up splits that way, it may not show up on the ledger, but that magic wouldn't have been there without that. So there are all kinds of value.
That's right.
But I'm not very fun, so I try not to ever be the vibe guy.
What you got to do is just re-examine your association with time and with money. You don't need another job. You need to do something that creates more value, that gets you paid more for the time that you do spend on it. You need to leverage your time. And you need to leverage your deals. Leverage. Wow. Where have we heard that before?
Word. Yeah.
There's a word that's near and dear to our heart. If you don't feel that you have the leverage, then you probably don't. So it's best to wait and try to formulate a little bit of a way to create some leverage before you decide to attempt like a deal of some sort. For instance, we talked before about how the strategy I did to meet Michael Wagner, somebody I'm a fanboy of. Yeah. I mean, dude produced.
Legendary producer, engineer.
100 million records sold. Yeah. The soundtrack of my youth, all the hair band, like love him to death. And I've been in several social situations where he's there, like at a club, not like at a party where I would be introduced or something, but like at a club. I could have gone up and said, hey, and shook his hand and just tell him how much I admired him or whatever. But I chose not to. So the first time I did reach out and have a conversation with him, I had a deal for him. I had some leverage. I had a budget. I had an artist that I think he was going to like. And it was just kind of up to him to decide, because he can work with whoever he wants to work with. And that was Jacob Cade. And sure enough, we hit it off. And now I'm two artists. He thinks of me like that. Just because I chose to bring value first.
He brings me things that aren't problems. This is great.
Yeah, exactly. Right? As opposed to going up to him and saying, hey, man, you work with all these bands. How come you can't give some of them to me to market them? I'm a great marketer. Okay. I'm Michael Wagner. What's your name? Who are you? But I'm thinking about bringing the value first before I'm having my hand out going, how can you help me? That changes the outcome. The way that I'm thinking about it changes the outcome. More value means more money, and more value means more power. Bringing more value into a deal, let's say with a record company, is going to be the difference between a 360 deal and an imprint.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked before about
Granger Smith.
Yeah.
Cody Johnson, probably.
Cody Johnson, yeah.
Yeah.
They came in going, no. I got tons of value now. So,
yeah.
and of course, don't think for a second that they weren't offered like an obnoxious amount of crappy ass 360 deals.
Yeah.
That was right out of the box for the first 3 years that they were being pitched. And then they started to get a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then when they did something that was so freaking undeniable, like Cody Johnson selling 75,000 tickets as an indie artist to sell out the, Allegiant Center down in Houston.
Yeah.
Then they're just like, okay, then somebody's like, give him whatever he wants. Like, we don't want somebody else to have him. That's going to be
take
bad.
It off without us.
Yeah. Let's get him on board. Like whatever he wants, let's do it. So then he bypasses the A&R guys. He bypasses the lawyers. He bypasses all the gatekeepers. And it's him as the president of the company out for margaritas. And I'm pretty sure it was like, what do you want? Here's what I want. I want to do it this way. I get 50-50. It's a joint venture.
Well, the leverage shifted from him coming with his cowboy hat in his hand. Mr. Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Mr. Brothers, I would really like a record deal. I believe in me, Mrs. Sony. To, hey, we love what you do. Let's work together. What can we do for you? Right? Yeah. Who's selling who?
Yeah.
The labels are selling him on them. They're competing.
Right.
The leverage has shifted.
And that's leverage. So,
and sometimes the only leverage you need is the ability to walk away. Like, maybe they can't offer a lot, but I can walk away because I got my own thing going and I'm doing all right. I'm not starving.
Well, a lot of people already do this when they go out and buy a car.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the first things you learn. Just be willing to walk off the lot.
Yeah.
If you're willing to come back 4 times, then finally they're going to break.
Yeah.
Because the house rules favor them, the finance company. So they're going to move the shelves around and do all kinds of crap and do that because they're going to shake you down because they know you want that car.
Yeah.
But when you walk off the lot 5 times, I know people that get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're bringing leverage. Like, okay, and so they're not talking about it. They're showing the salesperson, I don't need this.
Right.
Like, I want to get it, but you're going to do it my way or we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Again, the belief system though, how do you think about that? If your belief is that because you have a lot of talent, and in some of your cases, because you believe that you have a lot of talent,
mm-hmm.
maybe you're a diamond in the rough, but you're not refined. You really haven't done all the work that you need to do to be the viable competitive songwriter, or viable competitive artist, because there's a lot of work to be done. So you're still whacked out thinking that you're ready when you're not ready. Yeah. Here's something silly, but think about this. If you want a record deal and you want to do it without leverage, i.e. you've got all the talent, but no audience, no business, you haven't made a penny, and you want them to take care of it all, you're promising in your own head to like repay the label's investment with your time?
Yeah. Isn't
that freaking weird?
Mm-hmm.
When I thought about that blew my mind. I'm like, no, man, you want them to be like, oh, this girl's valued.
Mm-hmm.
She's the golden goose that lays the golden eggs. We need to take care of her, right? Because you're bringing the value, but you're not going to get that with just your talent. That's not going to happen until the business starts to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's a lot of talent.
Yeah, so, I mean, ignorance is not bliss, people. Ignorance is expensive.
Yeah.
It really is. We've talked about it before. Mindset. We've done some mindset shows, Brent, and we always get people like rolling their eyes, like, oh, those are the people that they know deep down inside, like that's the problem that they have. They have a crappy mindset and they don't want to change it. We talked several times before in the podcast about the lottery winners. They win the lottery. You're 5 times more likely to go bankrupt after you win a lottery than before.
Mm-hmm.
And almost all lottery winners are completely broke again, no matter how much they won. After 2 years' time, there's been multiple TV shows about it.
Yeah.
It's an astoundingly high percentage of these people that do that. Why? Because their beliefs in money are the reason they don't have money. The money wasn't the problem. It was the belief.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're telling yourself that you can't do this and you can't do that because of money, it's your belief system that's getting in the way. John Bon Jovi didn't have any money. He figured out how to get a record deal.
Yeah.
Right? Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails. He didn't have any money. Like he figured out how to get a record deal. I mean, there's a whole lot of songwriters that are on Music Row right now that came from very poor backgrounds.
Oh, yeah.
And figured out how to make it happen because they just are willing to accept what's coming and go with the flow. So
I got talk about mindset, a good question. I think I heard it from Michael Hyatt. So he's a speaker, author, coach kind of thing, and podcaster and author and everything. And his question is, what does this make possible? I think it's a very valuable question. So meaning maybe you live outside of Nashville. You live out in the middle of the Midwest, right? Now, you could be thinking about, what does this not make possible? Well, I can't go down to Music Row every day, and I can't bump into so-and-so, Garth at Starbucks, and I can't blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, what does it make possible? Well, you know what? For one thing, what it makes possible is I'm not living in the Music Row bubble. I'm actually living amongst the fans, and I can see what's important to them, how they're living. I had one guy tell me that lives in Missouri. He's like, that's a writer, and he makes trips into Nashville. He's like, I write country songs, but I'm also living them. I'm not going to stop living them just to write them. Because he goes out fishing. He lives in a small town in the middle of nowhere and all that stuff. And he's like, I'm not going to stop living a country song just to go write them. I'll make trips in,
That's right.
And so you're like, you can say one thing it makes possible is I'm really close to the fans, and I can figure out what they want, how they're living, what they're talking like, and what their days consist of, instead of being in the Music Row bubble. And what it makes possible is I'm going to have a little different vibe to my stuff, because I'm not in there writing with the same people that everyone else is writing with every day and doing the same thing. I'm going to have a little different flavor. And what does it make possible? Well, when I come into town, I'm like 24/7, all go, no quit. Don't have to worry about the wife and the kids, expecting me home by dinner time. Like, I may be coming in, but I'm like pulling triples. So when I come in, I'm getting a whole lot more done than I would get in like 3 weeks of just living there and having to go to work and be tired from work. Like, when I come in, I'm all in. Or what does it make possible? Well, I'm going to find the next Toby Keith that's in Oklahoma, because I'm close. And I'm going to find him, and I'm going to be the friggin' biggest songwriter around here. And he's going to write with me because I'm available. Like, I live around here, but I'm going to blow his socks off because I can learn from anywhere, and I can get better from anywhere. I can Skype write, and I can build my muscles. I'm going to find whoever this is in Kansas City or in Oklahoma, Tulsa, who's going to blow up, and I want to be their guy, right? Because they can't break in Nashville yet, or as they start to. I want to be the guy that's local. I mean, like, for me, one reason I could write with Erin Enderlin back in Arkansas, and we wrote Monday Morning Church, she was writing with more established people in Nashville. She came home over Christmas break and over summer break. Who's there to write with? Me.
Yeah.
Because I lived in Arkansas at the time, and I was good enough to write with.
Because you've done a bunch of work before that, so you could walk through that door and add value. Yeah.
And, granted, she didn't have any cuts at that point either, but she was ahead of me. So, I wasn't wasting her time, but I also had like no competition for her co-writing time when she's in on summer break. Right? Okay. So maybe this artist that's a regional artist, they don't have that pro level kind of co-writer, or wherever you are that's in that gap beneath it or whatever. And maybe they can't go up to Nashville and write with those people. But you know what? Hey, I'm around. I'll be Huckleberry. Yeah. You start owning their records, getting on their records and other people in the area, and you start building your power base, and one pops up, and all of a sudden you're the person that was there from day one. That's what that makes possible. What else does it make possible? That's for you to figure out where you are, right
off the bat. As soon as you say, I can't do that, just interchange it with, what does this make possible? And now you're thinking about it a different way. And you're starting to examine the belief system. Mm-hmm. You may have some beliefs about money that you just haven't thought about. Again, you haven't re-examined them. If you go back and think about them, really honestly think about them, you're like, you know what? I really believe now that this is BS, but I still keep behaving in this other way because it's just been ingrained in my head, but I can change that. Because here's the thing. I mean, here's a big one in the art, in the music world, right? Money corrupts artistic endeavors.
Mm-hmm. People are worried about selling out.
Yeah, selling out. But you know what? Every artist that you know about that changed your life, that made you even want to think about doing this to begin with, was either directly or indirectly needed money to make it happen. You're going to need money to make it happen. But just because you don't have that money doesn't mean that it ain't going to happen. Yeah. It just means that you're going to have to get it from somewhere else. And you're going to get it from somewhere else by turning somebody else on who's got money, who wants to invest in somebody like that, and making them believe that you're working so hard and that you believe so much that they can't help but believe too, because you believe. Mm-hmm. That's how they do it.
We were talking about mistaken beliefs and money is the root of all evils. When you hear that's not true, that's not even, that's a misquote for one thing. The Bible doesn't, people think that's in the Bible. That ain't in the Bible. It says the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. In other words, greed is a root of all kinds of evil. And yes, that is true. But money's a hammer. It's a tool. It's what you do with it. It's how is your heart oriented toward it. The Bible didn't say sex is a bad thing either. within its proper boundaries. It celebrates. Read the book of Song of Solomon. It's a wonderful thing within certain bounds. Same thing, money. It's not money. It's a thing. It doesn't have a moral component to it. It's what your heart brings to it. Maybe you're worried about, the evil one, richest 1%. Well, one thing I hate to tell you, if you're listening to this podcast worldwide, you're part of the evil 1%.
Yeah.
You're able to listen to this podcast.
You're welcome. Congratulations.
Yeah. Globally, you're 1%er. And so
you look like an a-hole if you're bashing all the rich people from your smartphone on Twitter.
Exactly. Like, yeah, some dude having to walk 5 miles to get water in Africa is like, son of a.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, re-examine those beliefs. Yeah, money's not a bad thing. Tell that to the charities that are thankful to get a check so they can go feed some homeless people.
That's right. And
is that money evil? No, it's a tool. We use it for good things.
I know tons of really wealthy people that are absolutely miserable, and I know tons of really wealthy people that are super happy, and they have a balance.
I know rich people there are rich people that are greedy, and I know poor people that are greedy. I've been a greedy poor people.
Yep. That's right.
God's working on me.
Doesn't have anything to do with the money. Right. Has everything to do with the heart. So anyway, that's all I had to say about that, guys. I just want you to rethink this whole thing and know before we got to Warner Brothers as a band, I hadn't painted that part of the picture. I just knew this is what I wanted to do. Yeah. And I was all in. And it went through a lot of different variations before we got on our first tour, which went through some more variations, major overhauls before we became attracted to the Allman Brothers. We went through some more like refining and refinements before all of a sudden Warner Brothers was interested. It just is all about like, are you in or are you out, and stop talking about why you can't do it. There's ways to do it. For whatever your situation is, there's somebody that came from nothing, right? There's a J.K. Rowling out there who was like, I was just sitting in a puddle of my own piss in a box, like being homeless with 3 kids, really feeling sorry for myself. And then I sold my first book and now I'm a billionaire. It's just a mindset, guys. And it's just a belief that you have. So re-examine them. And hey, if you need some tools to help you, we are getting our artists in front of people that want to hear them every single day. We put you in front of people who are actually going to listen. Who are they? They're people who like the kind of music that you make. That's what we help you do. We can consult with you on this. Reach out for consultation today. It's info@daredevilproduction.com. Please put consultation in the subject line. It'll get in the right mailbox, info@daredevilproduction.com. And you'd be amazed at what kind of energy you're going to get and what kind of tool set you're going to get after 1 hour. And you go out into the world and you start making a difference. We're just super excited to be there for you. And I always have a good time helping the artists out that do that. So that's it, guys. Join the client community, subscribe to the podcast, leave a rating and review, and share it with somebody if it's helping you. This podcast exists because we want you to win. So keep on climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.